we didn't know where we were going to stay. We made arrangements to rent a condo about 40 minutes outside of downtown Cleveland from the clinic, and kind of a mad rush to get everything done and in, and then we waited, and it happened to be one of those winters in Cleveland where it couldn't have snowed anymore, and I just remember having that feeling that you're alone, you're isolated, the snow is coming down. We put the kids in school, kindergarten, first and second grade, and you would sit there all day by yourself with the loneliest, hopeless feeling of waiting, and is this going to work, and will I ever get back home, in this case to California?
The mission of the Transplant House is to provide affordable, safe housing in a home-like environment for organ transplant families and patients. Only 4% of the medical centers in the United States have transplant programs. So families and patients have to travel great distances for their care. We're lucky in Cleveland that we have 2 hospitals here, but most of the patients that come here are from out of state and out of the area. So they need a place to stay while they're being evaluated and taken care of.
The Transplant House becomes a place that takes people outside of that medical bubble and reminds them that they are whole people separate from this medical experience that they're going through, gives them a sense of normalcy, the relief of doing things they would do if they were at home, from doing their laundry to vacuuming their own floor to putting their feet up on the coffee table if they want to.
All you have to do to understand this is just go to a hotel, somewhere isolated where you know no one, check in for a month and see how you feel 30 days later. It's really lonely, and people who have, I think people who are at a transplant house and have that sense of family and community and friends and people that are there that are going through the same thing, I think they probably have a higher cure ratio or a faster cure ratio.
Transplant patients and caregivers, it's a unique situation. If you're diagnosed with any other illness, you say, okay, these are my options, and you can schedule whatever surgery or treatment you need. With a transplant, you've got so many other factors. You have to get on a list, and where are you going to be listed, and then there's the wait, and most people get the call and then don't get the transplant, so there's a lot of ups and downs that other people may not have to deal with.
The mere fact that you have a home, you're not in a generic hotel room. And in a hotel room, you're all stuck together. In the transplant house, you have your separate bedrooms, or you have a room and go to the living room. The patient can be with the family or move away from the family while being still in a nice unit. See, at a hotel, it kind of forces you to tolerate each other 24/7. And at the transplant house, you can have your getaway, which could be just to simply going to the next room. But remembering as I went through my transplant, it was always good for me to be able to leave my family, go into my room, shut the door, put my feet up and watch TV. And that's the convenience of having the transplant house.
I was discharged, it was a whole new routine that I had to get used to. So there was that sort of nervousness of, I have a whole new life, new medications, everything to adjust to. But I was going to be needing to stay here for a couple months, in that recovery time. So it was important to know that I was going to an environment that I felt comfortable, and I was able to really, focus on getting better in that next stage of my life.
I'm gonna say that it was a very joyous experience, and that it's one that I wouldn't give up, and that I told my mom right before we were transplanted that I was glad that we were here, because it is a sense of home here. Especially as intestinal transplant people, we're here for a long time. Some of us are here for over a year. We're gonna be here for at least 9 months. So this is really our home, and the people who surround us here are our family.
Transplant is a bittersweet journey. It really is. It's emotional, it's physical for the donor family, for the recipient's family, the patients. And I think what we're going to be leaving, what we're getting out of this, and we'll be leaving with some amazing friendships and connections that give me goosebumps when I think about it.
It's just a different bond that you have. Like I've said before that the military has a military bond. I think the transplant community can have like a transplant bond. One of the first people that we really became good friends with, him and I just clicked right away. And it didn't matter that he was, 30 years older than I was. And he was going through a liver transplant where I was going through a different transplant. But there's just a total different understanding and camaraderie amongst transplant patients that nobody else understands.
There's a house next door that we want to become part of the campus. We want to create a community there, but with the 16 apartments, with the Cozad Bates house, which will give us great communal space in a pre-Civil War building, and some apartments, some bedrooms upstairs as well. And then there's another apartment building nearby that we can also include.
Tell others. I always say, if you've been impacted by someone, bring a friend and show them too. Because the only way this grows and the only way we'll be able to house more people is if the network widens. And anybody who's been caught by this mission should share it with at least one other person, and that person should do the same.
Previously, my heroes in my 20s and 30s were technicians and the Larry Ellisons of the world, and Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. And today it's Charlie Miller and John Fung and the doctors of the world who keep you alive and treat you well. And you need to support them in their endeavors to make others well. And if you're lucky enough not to need a transplant and want to donate, there's no better cause. They need your help.